I continue. So, the fact that stands out is that the elementary school classroom in a slum highlights the disparity between between formal education system and the ground reality. Now, should you ask me to elaborate this, I would say that the curriculum designed in schools across the world have a plan. They have a purpose. They are purposed to ensure that a child of a certain age is able to recall a certain number of words. That a child studying in class 5 be able to locate himself geographically. That a child has these many words in his vocabulary. This is the purpose. This is what formal education system purports to do, claims to do. However, the ground reality, as you are aware of, as you may be aware of, is totally different. Here, not to talk of children studying in classes in junior section, the disparity is shocking in senior school or senior secondary schools. Let's leave that aside. I repeat that I'm not carrying the text, and if I happen to miss out on any particular thing, you may that will be dealt with in the formal setup in school. Fine. Now, the first stanza can be best understood by visualizing the poet Stephen Spender standing at the threshold or at the entrance of the classroom, and the view that unfolds or manifests itself before his eyes is that of a large number of children, a battery of children studying in elementary school, with disheveled hair, untidy in clothes and hair, in general appearance, that is, disheveled. D-I-S-H-E-V-E-L-L-E-D. Disheveled is the word. That means untidy in general appearance. All right, untidy in general. I look untidy because I have not shaved. Fine, I look disheveled. So, disheveled children, a battery of such kind of children sitting in a enclosed classroom is what presents itself to the full view of the poet. And before he steps in, the prominent figure that stands out is that of children who have their strands of hair, locks of hair rather, hanging down in a loose fashion. Now, this image of the strand of hair or locks of hair of children hanging loose around their heads conjures up a mental image of trees or rather plants growing on the tree trunks, that of orchids, if I've pronounced the word correctly, orchids. So this particular imagery, that of orchids growing on the tree trunks with their roots hanging loose in the air, makes the poet invent a loaded image, and he describes the children using this image, and he calls them, if I'm not mistaken, he calls them rootless weeds. He calls them rootless weeds. My goodness, this is very important from examination point of view. Rootless weeds. No one is going to ask you how this image strikes him. No one. However, I repeat, when he sees the children in the classroom with their hair hanging loose in the air, he is reminded of orchids, these plants which grow on tree trunks with their roots hanging loose in the air. And he invents this imagery. invents this image rather, calls them rootless weeds. And this is loaded with meaning. One, rootless. Why? Rootless because these children have no place on earth that they can call theirs. No place on earth that they can call theirs. No place on earth that they can call theirs. No place on earth that they can call theirs. Weeds, as you say, undesirable plants. Absolutely correct. These children are akin to undesirable plants. That is, those people on earth, those influential people at the helm of affairs who have the power to make decisions, influence people's destiny, have washed their hands of these children and consider them no less than weeds. And he goes on to describe children, giving us a sample of children studying in this particular elementary school classroom in a slum, in this particular stanza. And I must remind you, the setting of this poem is not India, it is Austria. The setting is Austria. All right. There is a certain valley whose name I'll recall in the course of my description. I forget it. It doesn't strike me as of now. So the setting is Austria. So having described them as rootless weeds, he goes on to describe the physical appearance of these children. The first child, if I recall the order correctly, is that of a girl child. She's lean, rather thin, physically very weak, and she's sitting at her desk with her head down. Now this image of the girl sitting at her desk with her head down, with her head bowed down, strikes the image to the poet of a child who is disillusioned, who has no hope left. The abject poverty has drained out all hope from inside her, and dejected and disillusioned she sits at her desk the way she sits. There is another boy sitting somewhere in the same class, where this boy is seen by the poet reciting a poem or a lesson, as children do in elementary classes. To the poet, this child sitting at his desk with a book in front of him and reciting a lesson appears to give a totally different image. And the image that the poet's mind conjures up is because of the fact that this child has inherited a disease which has stunted his growth, has made him crippled. Now, to the poet, the child appears as if he is shouting at the top of his voice and telling the world that you claim to have wiped out the particular disease that I have inherited from the face of the earth. And here I am, a live example of that particular same disease. So look at the disparity. There is a huge gap between what those at the helm of affairs claim to have done and the ground reality. Among many other children that the poet describes, there is one child. He's sitting right behind, somewhere towards the back of the class.